Hey guys, Paul here. So today I wanted to talk about what I consider to possibly be one of the biggest design problems that Yu-Gi-Oh cards have today, and that is locks and restrictions on card effects. So specifically what I'm talking about is cards that lock you into maybe summoning only a certain given archetype for the rest of the turn or the turn that they're activated, or lock you into summoning a certain summoning type like Xyz or Fusion, or maybe fire or water attribute, and so on and so forth. And so basically, the reason why I'm talking about this is because I've been playing a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel lately, and there's oftentimes a deck that I've kind of just affectionately called Engine Soup. So basically, these decks that are like Fiendsmith, Snake Eye, Azamina, Kashtira, Millennium, plus maybe some other engine, White Forest or whatever, thrown in there. And basically, it's these very lean engines that can start really easily with low commitment, like they just special summon themselves from the hand or engraver pitches from hand or, whatever. They're not committing to a normal summon or anything like that. And they generate some advantage. And then they kind of like just get used to make a link monster and then move into the next engine. And something that you'll oftentimes hear about these decks, outside of the fact that they're just annoying kind of piles in most cases, is that this wouldn't be the case if there were just locks on more of these archetypes. And I find myself, generally speaking, agreeing with that, right? The fact that many decks can just special summon out a Kashtira Unicorn and they're not even actually playing a Kashtira deck and they're just using it to get Birth and then use Birth or whatever to summon the thing back. And it's also like a face-up spell that you can send for Diabell Star or something else later on in the turn. Yeah, basically, you're not playing Kashtira, you're playing just the best small slice of Kashtira. And it can be really annoying when none of the archetypes in these decks have locks because a lot of low tier archetypes in Yu-Gi-Oh! Tend to have those locks. Just for instance, Speedroids locking you into wind monsters for the turn. Or some archetypes literally lock you into just that archetype. You can only summon that archetype's monsters for the rest of the turn. And it kind of feels unfair, right? Like, why is it that Fiendsmith, which is the best engine in the game, or even like some past, top tier decks, we already mentioned things like Snake Eye and things like Kashtira, but also like Tier Elements did not have locks, for instance. Why is it that so many of these decks just kind of don't lock you into anything? And I know that the obvious answer is, well, Konami knows what decks are going to be good and what's not. Like, they kind of have that designed already for the most part. So this conveniently, let's lock this like all common budget little archetype into only being able to use its own things. Whereas, the best decks get to do whatever they want. But the thing is though, like, I think that locks aren't always the perfect solution to things. Would it be great if, Kashtira locked you into Xyz monsters? Maybe. Would it be great if Fiendsmith only locked you into just summoning Fiendsmith cards? Maybe not, because there is some creativity that comes in, decks being able to be combined and stuff. So for instance, a lot of hero cards, we just recently got more Masked Hero support. There's like that card Masked Hero Furnace and stuff like that. Yeah, a lot of hero cards lock you into hero monsters for the rest of the turn. And as a result, it means that yes, heroes get to sort of they get strong support because like they're locked into heroes, so you can't really like abuse heroes with other things. But it also means that like heroes kind of have a limit and a ceiling to what they can do. And that's sort of the common counter argument that I hear from people is like, yeah, locks would maybe be good for balancing, but it also, not having locks opens up deck creativity. I'm not sure how much that argument holds up, given the fact that like deck creativity sometimes just amounts to every deck's kind of just playing the same engines in it. Like it all sort of homogenizes, and, but anyway, so my question, I guess, is what is the best approach to take with card locks? Because there are a few different kinds of them, and I do think that they each have slightly different ramifications and like ways that they get used. Before I get into actually those, I guess I should mention there are some cards that say like you cannot do a certain thing the turn you activate this card, and then there are cards that just say like you cannot do a certain thing for the rest of the turn. With the cards that say like, okay, you cannot like, oh, you can only summon dark monsters for the rest of the turn after you activate this, like maybe that'd be like a card like Rocket Tracer and Dragon Link. It means that you can still make different attributes before you actually use Rocket Tracer's effect. For instance, making like Dragoonity Romulus, right? And that way you can, get some benefits or whatever. And then finally, once you get Dark Locked, it's after you've done all the things that you want to do. Generally speaking, I don't really have like a huge problem with these, although I will say like in the case of dark monsters only, dark kind of is the most like numerous attribute in the game and has oftentimes the best monsters. But like I generally don't have a problem with the idea of a deck or an archetype like locking you in after certain things are resolved, because if more archetypes did that, then eventually you would just kind of reach a point where you kind of can't push these combos very much further than they are. Still though, I guess like just for balance's sake, it's probably best to make like the entire turn thing. But I can be convinced either way with this. The other thing is I don't think that like archetypes should actually ever be like, or in most cases, 99% of cases we'll say, I don't think that archetypes should like lock into just their archetype. I think that the better way to do that is to lock you into maybe the type that their archetype shares or the attribute that it shares. So for instance, it would not really make sense if Snake Eyes could only like summon Snake Eye monsters or something than the turns they use their effects. But I think that maybe locking them into fire monsters for the rest of the turn could be a little bit different. It would basically mean like, okay, you can use Diabell Star to get into like original Sinful Spoils. I'm talking Master Duel, not TCG. I know it's banned in the TCG. But yeah, so basically like use that and then after you use your Snake Eye stuff, you're locked into fire. So you are able to make things like Promethean Princess, Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf, Ambler Whale, and that sort of thing from your extra deck. But you're not able to just sort of turn it into a board of like an Apollosa, an IP Masquerena, and the sort of typical extra deck sort of, the cronies that we all know and love, the usual culprits. That could be something interesting. I think that anytime that summon types are involved, that's also usually fine for me. Like locking into fusion monsters with branded fusion sounds fine to me. There are a lot of Xyz archetypes I've noticed that kind of tend to do this. Like more archetypes in general are doing it, but like I think locking you into Xyz monsters would be an interesting thing for Kashtira to explore. So like you can use Kashtira, but you have to summon Xyz. It means that you're not locked into just playing Kashtira, but you have to just only get to combine Kashtira for the most part with other Xyz strategies. I think things like that would work fairly well. I think that it still gives room for player creativity and like expression, and it's like deck building can be fun and different, but it isn't so much that like you can just take the best parts of every engine and just move from engine to engine to engine to engine to engine. That's at least my general take on it. And I think that this has become more of an issue in Yu-Gi-Oh! Mostly just because like we're at a point now where the actual design of cards is lean on purpose. Like what I was describing at the beginning of the video is Fiendsmith Engraver takes no real commitment to get that engine going. You just pitch it from your hand. Or cards like Kashtira Unicorn and the Millennium stuff, or Diabell Star, where you get to just sort of like summon them for free or nearly for free from your hand without like any real repercussions. And so it kind of just puts the onus on your opponent to like, okay, do they want to waste their Imperm or their Ash Blossom on this thing that was like, that kind of costs you nothing to really do. Also, the second bigger part of that is Link monsters. Link monsters throw such a wrench into the whole like separation of stuff because any two monsters for the most part can just link off. Link monsters materials are super duper like, very general, two effect monsters, two monsters with different names, something like that. And also like they don't have to count up the levels and match them like Xyz do. They don't have to have like a tuner and a non-tuner. I mean, it's literally just like, okay, I've got this thing on the field. I got this thing on the field. We're going to link them into Moon of the Closed Heaven, turn it into a Fiendsmith combo, then use the Kashtira birth that the Unicorn Source, and then bring it back and then send that for Deception of the Sinful Spoils or Diabell Star or just something else, right? Like, I think that Link monsters definitely have like a part in this. They sort of bear a lot of the responsibility because I think that, I'm not trying to turn this into like too much of a Link rant, but whatever. Actually, I'm not even going to go there. Whatever. The point is, though, I want to know what people think about summon locks and how you feel about them in terms of card design. I've heard a lot of mixed opinions on this. Some people seem to really like them. Some people seem to think that they just like restrict game design, restrict creativity. So let me know how you feel about what I kind of would argue is one of the more controversial like design aspects of Yu-Gi-Oh! Today. Cool. All right. I'll see you guys in the next one, which will be, I guess, the podcast tomorrow morning. So tune in for that. All right. Later.